All right. What's up, everybody? Sam Callahan here, back with the Callahan Training Group podcast. I think we're on season three, episode four, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 3-3. I don't know. Who knows? Um, I got my hair done, so I don't look like a total scumbag anymore. I was looking like a caveman, and thank God the kids are, oh, sounds mean. The kids are out with the wife right now, so I have a quiet house. I figured it'd be a good time to shoot a podcast because the last one, as cute as it was, with all the little shots of him in frame. It's really hard to concentrate when I have a toddler like running circles around the house and trying to kill himself or me or the dogs. But thank you guys for sticking with me. I hope you guys enjoy this 30-minute-ish format for this season. I'm trying to not ramble forever. I like to talk. I can talk. I have some topics I wrote down I want to talk about. Once I'm done with them, I'm just going to try to keep it around 30 minutes. That said, there's more points in here than I normally write down, so this might be a little bit longer than usual, but it'll be fun because people typically seem to have fun with the spicier takes or the spicier topics. Now, it is SHOT Show time. I know people are traveling there already. I know people are there already. I don't know any of the specifics because I don't care. Um, I don't know when it starts or ends, but I know it's around right now. Now, what I do like is in about 10, 12 days or so, through Instagram, I'll find out about all the cool stuff that's out there. I say that because SHOT Show has become an absolute horrorscape of just everybody and everything shoving everything in your face at one time a year. I don't think it's a fruitful endeavor if you're a manufacturer trying to make good sales anymore. I don't think SHOT Show is really going to change anything anymore. It's kind of like a song and dance you have to do. I get it. But the only reason I'd ever catch myself there is if I was representing one of the sponsors that I partner with. I choose to partner with all the people I do. I would spend my money on them anyway. I'm happy to represent them because I believe in the products. But most of the people there, I don't really, I don't need SHOT Show to show me the newest thing out there. We have the internet now, unfortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it. And today's topic is kind of based around this kind of feeling I have about SHOT Show. SHOT Show is an industry show. It's a marketing show. It's a, I don't know, manufacturer's show. And that's what I want to talk about. Kind of the difference between manufacturers and the guns that are out there and the optics that are coming out and all the new things that are coming out and what people are actually shooting and care about and actually matter. And in my opinion, about 99% of the guns coming out right now are stupid and dumb and they don't serve any purpose other than redesigning something that's already out there and offering more colors and combinations of things and taking more money from people without them training or being able to use this. I could go on and on about this kind of stuff, but I know I'm a simple man. That's what I want to talk first. Is when people talk gear with me, I'm very form follows function. I'm very much an efficiency guy. I know I'm not very fancy. I like to shoot Glocks. I like Glocks, and that weirds people out. They're like, it's not known to be like an aesthetically pleasing thing. Well, I drive a Tacoma. I like a Tacoma. I think the same thing about it. I think it looks good because it works good. It's reliable. It's awesome. It's not ugly. I will argue that. It's just it might not be your cup of tea. That's fine. I don't want to drive a Porsche ever. Nice things give me anxiety. Um, but what I also will say is pertaining to my thought process about all these guns is I'm an efficiency guy. Form follows function for me because I don't want to overpay for aesthetics. I don't want to overpay for anything that doesn't actually get me anything. I'm big on you get what you pay for, you know. I want to pay once for a really quality product. I don't want to pay 100 times for a shitty product, but I don't want to overpay just to be in some club or look some kind of way. I kind of have always felt that about every sport I've ever been in. I'm playing golf right now, and it's the same thing. Just because you have nice clubs doesn't mean you can hit them. But also don't waste your time whacking at shitty clubs from the 90s, you know, like there is an in between in all this. Now, the other big thing that I like to talk about with all this gear is like the in the back of my head, part of before I go into this launch, part of why I rate things or put value on things a certain way is like, well, what about part availability? What if you break it? What if you need a backup? What about holsters? What about mounting plates, optics, with weird, you know what I mean? Like, let's think about like your average person who isn't in the industry like myself, who has to go to a hardware store to buy stuff or go online to buy stuff, like how easy and simple is it for people to buy and use these things without having to overpay or send it to a gunsmith or do 100 extra steps just to get a gun that shoots, you know? So that's my big thing. I think about efficiency as far as like how the gun works, meaning like I don't need to overpay for something that's not going to overachieve. I'll talk about that with a certain gun specifically. Being able to have parts and availability of parts and backup guns and all those kinds of things, and being able to have like holsters and we'll just say serviceability to the gun. Those are all things that are more important to me than having the newest, latest, greatest thing out there because guns seem to work right now. I don't have any problem with a Gen 3 Glock. I still have Gen 3 Glock. I still carry a Gen 319. They do their job. They're awesome. I like new things. Everybody does. So, of course, I have a Gen 5 19 that I carry as well. I carry my Gen 5 45 more than anything, honestly. But that's kind of where I like to start right there. It's like, hey, we're not releasing anything that's doing anything new anymore. So if you're getting into a new setup, if you're getting into a new gun, like I was talking about the new Gen 6 Glocks, it's a great gun, but if you have a working Glock setup, it'd be kind of stupid to then go to the Gen 6 and drop a working Glock setup for yourself. If you're going to go to Glock, it's a great new version of Glock. It's pretty, it's clean, it's answered all the questions, but it's not doing anything differently. It's just answering a couple questions that the industry is asking for. And funny enough, I have my old, I mentioned my Glock, my Gen 3. I have the old RTF2 texture that everybody was fighting over, the Larry Vickers texture back in whatever year, it doesn't matter. And everybody went away, or Glock went away. We'll say this is where my gripe starts. The industry, the marketing, the designers, the engineers started to go away from that RTF2 texture. They went away from that overly textured Glock grip because the Americans, and this is their response, this is my what I heard from them directly. The American consumer doesn't like that really rough texture. It's too hard for them. So they started to manufacture that kind of black grip texture that everybody ends up either stippling or throwing grip texture over anyway. And then lo and behold, 20 years later, 10 years later, whatever, they come out with the Gen 6, which has new textures on it because that's what real shooters want and need, and that's a big deal when it comes to shooting. So it's kind of funny if you let the engineers listen to we'll say the average citizen out there. Well, we all know the average citizen doesn't train or doesn't shoot or doesn't compete or doesn't actually know how to use the end product to its highest demand. So if we keep designing products around the lowest level, we're going to keep getting low level products. I know that sounds obvious, but that's kind of where this whole topic started off of. People are complaining too much about shit that does work and that is fantastic. And there's way too many people out there. I call them buy-hards. They, I don't even want to call you a try-hard because you're not even willing to try. You're not even willing to train. You're not even willing to fail. You're willing to buy and try and buy and try and buy until you have an $1,800, $2,200 fucking Glock set up in your pants that you can still not shoot out of a B class. So I had this conversation with somebody yesterday and it started to kill me. First thing I want to talk about, because I'm on the topic of Glocks, the funniest thing that I keep seeing, and I'm sure Shot Shell will deliver another, Glock killers. It's literally laughable at this point. I don't want to hear about the Ruger. I don't want to hear about the shadow systems. I don't want to hear about any of them. They don't perform as reliably. They don't have any performance increases noted over a Glock. They don't shoot better. They're not more accurate. They're not faster. They're nothing like that. So it's less reliable of a gun for a little bit more cost and less part availability. I'm done. We're good. Stop trying to kill Glock. Glock works great. It's like trying to release a new product and being like, it's the Honda Civic killer. Yeah, good luck with that. I hope your car company goes great, and I know it won't. Why are you trying to do that, man? Why are you trying to do a Toyota Tacoma killer, man? Stop it. It's so silly. Now, I get customizing Glocks. I get like if you have big hands or weird hands or small hands or whatever, throwing a back strap on the Glock. I see a lot of people using that Kirill strap, or basically what the OGs of us used to do is just cut off the base strap and only use the beaver tail, the top of it, and just kind of reduce or increase that distance between your thumb and your finger right there. Well, that's great. That's just fitting a gun to you. I think that's great. I would argue that I really like the fitment of Glocks because they lock you into a very consistent return. Like there's a very consistent place to be when you're gripping the Glock. It's not locked out. I mean locked in as in like like I'm locked in, bro. It makes you feel very locked in the Glock grip. Now, if that doesn't fit you for whatever reason, that's great. That's awesome. There's other guns out there that are as reliable in the same price point and the same kind of nicey zone as a Glock. But you don't need to go out there and start going like, well, I need a metal one, I need this, I need a shadow systems, I need a brass grip plug, I need a tungsten guide rod. If it doesn't fit you, stop trying to make it fit you. Find another gun that fits you and start shooting that gun. Now, what I will start saying before I go onwards is I know there's a lot of thoughts about guns and like what gun's the best and what gun's not the best. And I just will look right now and go look at Carry Optics Division right now. You can pause this and go look at Carry Optics Division and go look at the last couple of nationals and go look at the polls that they provide and what gear is out there. And you're going to see Shadow 2, Smith& Wessons, Glocks at large. I know there's exceptions, but that's it. There's a SIG in there every once in a while. There's other people with weird guns. I know that. I know like Billy Barton's running his Zed Tech, but it's a Glock. You know what I mean? Like there's a very small avenue in there. So kind of like, hey, just go fit yourself to one of these three or four ones that work. Stop thinking harder. You don't need to make a, a gun that doesn't fit you something it's not, pick something that is. But that said, I hate right now this trend of I'm calling it paperweight striker fires. I don't need a 100-pound striker fire gun. I play this game. I literally answered a question everybody was asking. What if you shot a better gun, Sam? And what I ended up doing was shooting a giant steel frame striker fire gun. It was like something like 48 ounces loaded because I had like grips on it, I had an optic on it, I had base pads. It was insanely heavy. And what I found is it didn't do anything better than a Glock 34 stock does me. It doesn't shoot faster, it doesn't shoot more accurately. So right there off the bat, there's no performance increase. Now I figured, hey, heavier gun will be better at distance, say it'll absorb more, it'll blah 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 blah. I was wrong. I'm willing to admit that. That's why I like this whole attitude. I'm going to test it for a season and actually like do a self-report on it and have some data. It didn't make me better at distance. It didn't absorb any more, blah, 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 blah. What it did do for me is it allowed me to relax a little bit more because it was a big, heavy gun, but I found that actually ended up being a detriment. My style is a snappier gun, kind of a lighter gun. I like to really grip the hell out of it. To shoot the Walther at its max, I had to really relax and like let it do its thing, but that meant I would kind of lapse in fundamentals sometimes and just like I do nothing with my weak hand instead of just a little bit I needed to. I'd be lackadaisical with transitions. I'd be lackadaisical because any extra input to those big heavy metal guns gets punished deeply. Whereas the Glock, you can put some energy into it and it'll absorb it. You don't need to be like afraid of manipulating the gun, where I found you had to be almost like careful to manipulate some of these bigger, heavier striker fire guns because they just like they're already at the end of their performance. So anything you do to it, it kind of like it feels like it jumps. I don't know. It's definitely also I'll say it's definitely a styles and preference thing. I like a bunch of people I've messaged and talked to prefer a lighter gun. I prefer a snappier gun. I prefer a gun I can really like grip and rip. Even the guy I was talking to last night, he loves his Shadow too. He said he literally wishes it was lighter. It's funny. Not all everybody's looking for these paperweight guns. That said, it's not a bad thing to have a heavy gun if that's your preference. It styles in shooting a lot. I'm not going to say I'm right, but I think it's hilarious right now seeing everybody trying to like race to the bottom of like who can make the heaviest gun. It's fruitless endeavor. It's kind of stupid because what we're finding is it's not like a best weight thing. It's like there's no best car. It's a preference thing, and there's really a reliability thing and a longevity thing that most people care about if you really come down to it over the anything else, right? Now, there are some exceptions to this. I'm looking around at the topics I wrote down. What I will say is I really like the new Smith& Wesson steel frame because they kind of split the difference here. It's not a $2,000 gun. If I heard correctly, it'll be around a $1,200 gun, and it's not a 48-ounce gun. It's like a 35-ounce gun. So for those racers who want to shoot their Smith& Wesson that they know and love, the grip angle, the trigger, all that kind of stuff, it's some improved slide serrations and things like that, and it's a little bit heavier, but it's not now a boat anchor. It's not the paperweight striker fires that people are trying to force down people's throat. It's not the Glock with the brass grip plug and the tungsten front end. It's just a well-balanced steel frame gun. And people are gonna not you're never gonna make everybody happy. So I know there's gonna be more haters than anything that come out about the Smith& Wesson because that's all that people talk about online. Ironically, as I'm sitting here and shitting on guns on a podcast. But I think it's going to be a good gun. But I'll kind of jump into my own. I'll interrupt myself there and say the reason I think that gun ended up innovating into a better gun and being released around SHOT Show and kind of being an exception to the rule of what I'm talking about right now is because Hunter Constantine's behind it and he's a real shooter. So it's not some engineer or some product development or some marketing agency saying, this is what I think the people want because I spent 3 hours at an indoor range one time and I put a pole up some fucking place. Like they actually got a shooter to go out there and shoot performance level at worlds and nationals and really go out there and push it. And he had feedback. They answered the feedback. They released a gun that is going to make the real Smith and Wesson crowd happy. Like the guys who really already shoot the M&Ps really well, that new steel frame is going to make them super happy. Um, that said, I'll go into the next like nonsense that I talk about, and it's the the friggin' 2011s out there, man. I'm if you know what I'm trying to not curse so much. My wife likes to yell at me. There's so many 2011s out there right now, and it's just like it's just annoying me at this point because there's no such thing as innovation when you're following a patent. I know this might blow people's minds, but 1911s and 2011s are you could pull up the design specs, follow the design specs, and in any machine shop, like if you went to a shop class in college, you could just make the gun. So people making a 2011, putting six slide cuts in it, and then releasing a polymer grip. Dude, you're fleecing people. $3,000 for a gun that's worth, I don't know, $900 to $1,200. What's that Rock Island Armory? $900, $1,000, that double stack 1911. That's the cost of Staccato. That's what Staccato should be charging you guys. That's what most of these 2011 people should be charging you guys. If it's an off the line, not hand fit, not hand customized. If it's an off the line 2011 that doesn't outshoot Glocks, and they don't, they're less reliable, they're not more accurate, they just have a really light trigger that lets a poor shooter pull it better. You could sit there and group at 25 yards the same with a Glock as you can a Staccato off a bench rest. So these guns are off the factory floor charging you literally 5, 6 times a Glock, and you're getting zero out of it. It's ridiculous. They're just preying on the ignorance of people, showing a shiny thing to everybody. And by the way, Staccato was STI, and if you were along, I've been in the sport for like 11 years now. We all remember what happened to STI. They just started breaking and doing terrible things. They went so terrible in the way of every gun needing to get warranted that instead of, I don't know, selling them to the competition shooters that shoot 100,000 rounds a year, all they did is market it to the fucking tactical bros and the cops because they know they don't shoot enough to break the guns, and if they do, they're just going to send it to the armorer and they don't know better. And now, for somehow, that's leaked out into the competition world. It's silly to me that those off the line, just buy it and send it to my house 2011s are coming out. It's there. You should be paying $900 for this gun, $1,200 for that gun. It's silly. Now, it's also silly because their mags are crap and also way overpriced. So some of these guns might run, and then they just don't run because their mags are absolute garbage because they're made of chintzy aluminum and they don't hold spec because why would you want the most important mag feeding the thing that feeds ammo into the gun? Why would you want that to hold spec? Ridiculous. $100 for that magazine tube, by the way. Thanks. Cool. Cool. I don't feel like you're totally, that doesn't sound like a scam at all, but whatever, man. 2011s are the best. It's so silly. Now, that said, there's a couple companies out there making awesome 2011s. Why? Because they're hand fitting and making them for reasons. They're not just following a patent and releasing some nonsense, putting a new slide cut in it, a new window, and calling it a new thing. There's a couple things out there that I really like. There's some performance 2011s being built, like Atlas Arms. If you're going to pay for a 2011, you're going to pay for a 2011. But if I'm going to pay for one, I would rather pay Atlas Arms his money and get one that's built because it's actually built for a reason. They're built for performance. They're built to return back to zero. They're actually built for a specific reason. Or I'd give it to the DCA boys. There's a bunch of good ones out there. Now, the other side of things is what I like to see is that's like the performance ones. If you're going to spend the money, if you're going to spend over $3,000 or around $3,000 on a 2011, you might as well go to, am I saying that? Yeah, it's Atlas, right? Yeah, it's Atlas. You might as well go to Atlas. You might as well go to DCA. You might as well go to these guys now for two reasons. They're actually performance guns built around performance. They're also out there sponsoring our sports, have sponsored shooters out there performing with these guns. So they have money. They've got skin in the game. They've got their money in the game. I believe in them. I think the other side of 2011s that are going to be interesting to start coming out are the ones that are Glock mag fed or plastic mag fed, cheap mag fed. Because I know there's one that just came out with like you could do the Sig mags with. I think that's pretty cool. I think coming out with these 2011s that are like $2,000 and they take Glock mags, that might start to push the innovation in the right direction because now we're fixing the dumb feeding issue and the $100 mag issue. $2,000 gun, sure, fine, okay. It's a metal gun. It's got a little bit more parts, pieces, and love into it. I get that a 2011 might cost about $1,200 to $2,000 if it's just a off the line production gun. But I think that's finally heading in the right direction. But just trying to release like 17 different versions of sight block this and ported this and comp this. The fact that there's like 12 different 9mm minor ported 1911 2011s out there is hilarious to me. You need to port the gun that weighs 56 ounces, that is 5.5 inches long, that you're going to shoot soft ammo out of. You also need a 1-inch chunk port at the front, man. How about learn to shoot the guns better? Learn or just buy two Glocks and learn to shoot those better, and you'll probably have money left over for ammo too. So like this whole 2011 nonsense is getting hilarious. It's not a revolutionary gun. It's a patented gun. It's a patent you can follow, like the 1911. Stop making it more than it is. Stop paying for more than they're worth. Go to a guy that actually is hand fitting them and making a performance one, or buy a cheap one. I know that sounds crazy, but buy a cheap one and learn to make it hand fit it yourself. Learn to make it run. It's so silly to me. Now there are some other divisions I'll talk about, and if you hate rifles, skip over. But PCC is another one of these divisions I like to talk about. I myself run a mod mat, a modern material. It's from Keyport, New Jersey. It's a off the box or like off the shelf box PCC. It takes Glock magazines. Takes actually out of the box. It comes with a Hyperfire single stage trigger. Awesome. All you got to do is throw an optic on it and it runs. And I mean that because I did it. I threw a Vortex solar on it, Spark solar on it, and I made GM with it. And then I won a couple matches overall with it and shot a major with it and did very well at that major with it. So the gun runs out of the box. Now, that's a 1999, $2,000 MSRP gun. Why in the hell are people going to these other companies and buying $3,900 guns that are still just a blowback AR-9? I don't care if it's JP. I don't care if it's this. Dude, you're paying $2,000 for it to have red anodization and JP on it. That's ridiculous. These guns also break more often than my PCC has. I've been running this thing for 3 years carelessly, meaning I barely clean it. I don't maintain it. I shoot it hard. I shoot it heavy. I teach with it. I compete with it. I beat the living hell out of it. I let other people borrow it. it it's running every ammo. I've broken one firing pin. Let's see, I break anything else? Nope. I switched the trigger on it, but that was preference thing. I wanted to have the same hyperfire across everything. Yeah. No, I threw a magwell on it. So I did put a little bit of money into it. I threw like a $99 magwell on it, techwell on it. What is it? Yeah, $99 techwell on it. But it literally outperforms and outshoots every other blowback nine I've been handed. Now, I'm being very careful with my words. Blowback nines. Not the roller delay, not the bearing delay, not all that kind of stuff. Now that's where we're talking. Hey, you're gonna pay a little bit more than 2 grand. Da Vinci's starting to make some cool stuff. He's starting to innovate. They have some roller delay stuff. They have some cool stuff in there. They're great guns. They shoot well. They shoot better than most blowback nines because they're tuned to do such, and they're not absolutely making you pay for it. Now, a lot of those companies, Da Vinci's cool with this. They sell some of the roller delay systems so that you can throw it into your AR-9 you have and kind of soften the pat that you feel come back at you. It's not that it hits us hard. It's just that that dot kind of snaps if you're shooting just a traditional AR-9 like I am. And then I had a buddy, Alex, come poison my brain the other day, and he goes, "Hey, check this thing out." And it's the Maul. It's not the crazy one they have coming out, not the mean arms, the whole setup they have coming out. What he has right now is basically the guts of that, the front end of that, the barrel, the bolt, and their little proprietary little system, and he's got a little delayed, uh, we'll say a softened recoil system in the back. And everybody tells me their gun doesn't have recoil. And everybody's like, oh, shoot my gun, shoot this, shoot that. And I get to do that a lot. I'm blessed because I do this for a living and I'm around the industry. I get to shoot a lot of guns and be like, cool, 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 cool. Alex was like, this gun has no recoil. And Alex doesn't like hype guns. He's not like a gun. I say snob in a good way. Like he buys good guns, but he doesn't like puff his chest out about like, this is the best gun ever, your sucks. And he's been talking this up. He's been like, you got to shoot this, you got to shoot this, you got to shoot this. I was like, all right. We finished the classifier match. I picked the gun up. And I have never seen a gun run so flat before. And I asked him price on it, and it was basically, we'll say 2/3, maybe less than your typical like Gucci AR-9 blowback, JP and the like these just companies that are making you pay for their name. It was the easiest, softest. It shot softer than some 22s I've ever shot. It was insane. I was literally able to pull the trigger and the dot was not moving. I ran a couple classifiers as fast as I could possibly move my eyeballs. Absolute insanity of a gun. So there are some guys out there innovating stuff. Da Vinci's doing good, mean arms, awesome. But like as far as buying the next newest AR blowback or like going out there and buying the next SIG, whatever is going to blow up in your face, like, and I don't mean the unconditional discharge thing. I mean I've seen a lot of the MPXs work until they just fucking don't, until they just like lock up for the day and there's nothing around it, right? Now I know all these AR-9s are kind of like prone to, they're like open guns. They work until they don't. But I've seen a lot more issues out of other people's guns that I have Alex's Maul and my modern material. I've run them through a lot. He's run them through a lot. He runs them at a lot of majors. He shoots a lot of matches, including my weekly match and then matches on the weekends too. He probably is one of the few people who shoots more matches than myself because he shoots all my matches every week plus others. And yeah, that's what he chooses to run with his own money. And he's not some like sponsored Gucci shooter who's getting his dime paid back on every trip. He's choosing to buy that stuff. So there is some innovation out there. Now, as far as the AR-15s go, if you want to be a two gun guy, there's really not going to be a whole lot of conversation about making these guns better anymore. Buy a nice buffer, buy a big old annoying comp, or suppress the gun, run a 14, run a 10.5, doesn't matter. Your mount's going to matter more than anything. Having a good optic's going to mount more than anything. Having a reliable gun's going to mount more than anything, or matter more than anything. But there's really not going to be a secret of, yo, this best AR, this new AR, this gun, this company, the other company. You can shit on them all you want, but I have a fucking Anderson upstairs that runs perfectly fine. I run modern material rifles myself now, though, because again, if I'm going to pay for a rifle that works, it's going to not be for a name brand. It's going to be for functionality. It's going to be like buying a Tacoma. It's going to run. It's going to run every time I pull the trigger. It's going to do its job every single time, and I'm not paying for fancy nonsense. It works. So that whole AR thing is kind of funny to me. There's really not anything else out there. Now the LPVOs and the optics are where things get crazy as far as the two gun world goes. Um, what I really see is the LPVOs are getting more and more distance distance specific, and like the newest AMG 1 to 10 that came out, that's great. It's a great for its purpose, what it is came out, but making the eye box harder to get behind and making it smaller and making the 1X less usable for your average user is not what we need. Most people are going to be using these LPVOs from 1 to 3. If you're zooming into 6, it's just because you're like laying down and being comfortable. If you're shooting two gun or if you're shooting any of the civilian stuff, you're not training if you aren't just using one, 1.5, two on most things out to 150 yards, honestly, 200 yards. And outside of that, then you're shooting different disciplines. And that's where, sure, get the AMG 1 to 10 if you're shooting different disciplines. But the 1 to 6E Razor is the best optic out there, in my opinion. The eye box on that 1X is just as good, if not better, than most red dots. And then you can slam it down to 6X. It's got a good reticle. If you're an MRAD guy, they have that. I'm an MOA guy because I'm an old, dirty, dumb three gunner. But they got it. They got good stuff. Everything's clear. Everything's good to use. So really, that's where, in my opinion, you should spend money on like most of these guns. Just get a good, reliable gun, and then get into the optic and talk about what optic is right for you. And that's kind of my tricky way of walking into that topic. Is optics are the next thing I kind of want to shit on a little bit here. Um, how big do you need your fucking red dot? How big of a window are we going to get until we are shooting in what looks like a picture frame and I'm holding a little tiny toy gun? I'm always enamored by this. There's these just silly things coming out right now. Giant optics. This Pro Max size, this Pro Max, whatever. Do I like the Vortex XL? I do. Did I make GM in two different pistol divisions with an ST? I did. So, in my opinion, I like the ST better because I like the 3 MOA, whatever it is about that reticle. I see it the smallest and crispest, even better than the 2 MOA. It's obviously smaller than the 5 MOA. It's my favorite reticle. I've learned to like it the most. So the ST 3 MOA, as far as glass clarity and optic clarity goes, that's my favorite. It's my favorite one. Do I like the XL? I do. I like the XL just because it's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit more forgiving. Really, at some point, you're just asking to split hairs. Like, I don't think there's a huge difference between the ST and the XL at the end of the day. If you are depending on the XL to mask shitty fundamentals because you can't find your dot immediately or the dot's higher, the dot's left, then it doesn't matter that you have a big window because you have bad fundamentals. So even if you find that dot quicker, your performance is gone anyway. It doesn't really matter. I think the window being bigger is good for like super high performance stuff or where you're really coming into frame and I'm locked on a target already and I'm seeing the window and I'm seeing the optic. I'm basically getting a bigger gap of time between the optic frame and the optic itself as it comes into sight. Now we're splitting hairs though, because so many people are so far away from talking about that little 0.1% of anything, and they're still working on their trigger pull and their optic, and they're still taping over the front of their dot. So there's the other thing. If you're taping over the front of your dot, it doesn't matter how big your window is. I know that sounds stupid, but no, it doesn't. Like, come on, guys. If like you're still taping over the front of your dot and you still need to do it on a regular basis, I don't need to hear about your window preference size. What I need to hear is my index needs to be improved until I can't find my dot, and then we can start talking about the performance increases you will get from a bigger window. But the people talking about a bigger window is going to help me get better with the dot are barking up the wrong tree. As always, they're going to be 5 years behind the rest of the normal USPSA guys, performance guys, and we're going to be looking at this normal like performance gap of about. I always joke it's like 5 to 10 years. What the argument right now is going on in the world of shooting is always what the high level GMs were arguing about 5 years ago, and they're on to a new fight because it's 5 years later, you know. So it's like this funny thing where look, if you need everything to be bigger and easier for you, fine, but that also is masking fundamental skill, and it's only taking people longer to see that because they don't shoot this performance game, they don't shoot USPSA, they don't go and fail, they don't go and lose, and that's what this whole thing was all about. Is okay, Glock killers, dumb. Paperweight striker fires, unnecessary. Some heavy ones, cool. 2011 nonsense. You heard how I feel about it. The rifles and the PCCs, you hear how I feel about it. You hear what I feel about the giant windows and all this kind of things. The reason I have a problem with all this, and the reason I'm smiling now is what I just said. These people are so far behind in their thought and their performance and all that kind of stuff because they just won't come out and play with us. They won't come out and do the performance stuff. They just won't go shoot a match. They won't go do classifiers. They won't go get their classification. They won't dry fire every day. They won't train every day. They won't shoot regularly. So the people developing and making the products are sitting in a fucking cubicle. They're sitting in a desk. They're taking polls online. They're on Facebook and Instagram. And we all know how great that is for resources. They're on Reddit and getting information. They're doing their research online, getting all that information from all that treasure trove of gold instead of just going to your local match. If a Smith & Wesson rep or a Glock rep or a optic rep showed up at a local match and just started asking people, what do you use? Why do you prefer that? What's your preference and why? And go and see who's the A class and above guy saying those kind of things, they'd get to the point a whole lot quicker than we currently are. It's kind of silly. It's like we're in we're in like the iPhone thing right now. First, we wanted the iPhones as small as possible. Remember when optics came out? We wanted a tiny, really low to the slide optic, and now we're at the iPhone 18 Pro Max. We want the optics as big as possible. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to get tiny again. They're going to get big again. And they're going to get tiny again. And you know who's going to benefit? The manufacturer selling you guys all these optics that you're going to have either for sale online for 20% off or in your man room like I do, just on the shelf of forgotten stuff. You know, guys, we're chasing a goose here. My whole problem with this, the sales versus engineers versus product developments versus the actual shooters is just that. There's no like real streamline. I think it's so silly that people are developing products that they're not the end users of. Why the hell is there a group of nerds? I don't care if you're really good at CAD and SolidWorks, and I don't care if you have shot a gun and your papa hunted with you when you were 7 years old. Why the hell are these nerds designing optics for us and telling us what we want and then giving it to some guy who is the model for the company to go shoot it in a commercial and tell him how he likes it instead of just going to a match, going to nationals, going to states, going to area matches and being like, hey, yo, what do you guys like? Because you know what? In the car industry, they're not out there polling your individual person unless it comes to like your heads up display and your computer system. How do you want your Sirius XM? They're not asking you how you want your shifting and your tires, how big your windshield. They don't ask you guys that. You know why? Because the average consumer doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. What they do is they ask professionals, how are they going to develop these cars? They ask people to drive them. So what I'm asking is the same as I ask as some of the guys who design RVs. And it's a funny crossover. You'll see my point. I want the sales and the engineers and the product developers to start shooting in matches. Take that thing that you think is the greatest thing ever and bring it to a match and shoot it before you do your initial announcement. And then tell me if you'd be proud to announce it. Pretty simple test, right? Well, if you don't know what you're talking about in a match, then I don't think you know what you're talking about anyway. So simple. So learn about the match, learn about the product, the performance, learn about the industry and what you're pushing that product and development into. And then if you could do that, we'll start developing products a little bit better. We'll start trusting the industry a little bit better. We'll have this like more of a streamlined approach. Now, what kicked this all off, other than somebody talking to me about there's complaints. I'll talk about the new Gen 6 and some other things. Somebody was complaining about the undercut of the Gen 6 and like, oh, it hurts my knuckle. Shut the fuck up, man. Shut the fuck up. But that was the initial thought about this whole podcast. But what really, and I wrote it down, and what made me mad is the same disconnect in this industry is the same disconnect in the RV industry. My father's been RVing around the country for a long time. My sister is a sporting clay shooter, and long story short, they had some issues. They were flying before they were RVing. The gun almost went whoopsie to the TSA twice, and both times was an actual theft. Somebody from the TSA or somebody in the security actually stole a gun, put it somewhere different, we had a tracker in the thing before air tags were a thing, and we found the gun. And my dad decided, you know what, it'd be a safer way. Why don't we just RV around? He's a weird guy. He likes to drive. He decided to get a cool little 25, 27 footer, and he started to drive. Now he's driving like a 45 footer with the trailer. He's an animal. He's just making miles and miles and miles around the country. But the reason I joke about this is where we are in Northeast PA area. When you go and buy these RVs from places, they're actually built and designed by Amish. It's the weirdest thing because it's a very technological, it's a not even a car, it's a bus. You think, hey, they don't use buses, they don't use cars. They don't live in this technology rich environment. Microwave and a stove and a fridge on board. Like I know I'm oversimplifying it. I'm sure they have a fucking refrigerator. I know I sound like an idiot. But my point is the Amish definitely aren't getting on an RV and RVing the country. I think we can agree on that simple fact. But they are building our RVs. And the problem is when you're on that RV for 5, 6, 8, 9, 12 days, you start to realize who the fuck designed this? Who did this? Who did that? This was stupid. This was dumb. And the disconnect is the people designing and building these things aren't on these RVs using them for long periods of time. It would make the product a whole lot better if they knew what the hell they were making and designing things for and not just sitting in a pole barn building whatever's on the spec sheet because some engineer in a computer handed these to these guys handed it to these poor guys who have cheap labor costs, you know? If you sell RVs before you announce, hey, this is the newest model out there, I dare you to go take a 2 week trip on it. And if you're proud of that RV, announce it. Sell it. Go ahead. And I know this will never happen, but this is the whole point is the RVs break and this sucks and that sucks and I don't use this feature and this feature is dumb and this could be better because the guys who are designing the RVs and selling the RVs aren't on the RVs. Just like our industry. The guys who are designing the next newest optic and the next thing and the next ported comps 9mm fucking bullshit nonsense, they're on Reddit listening to stuff and they're not out at matches. They're not shooting, they're not carrying every day, they're not training. They're not shooting thousands of rounds a month. They're not out there talking. And I know that sounds like a lot, but hey, if you're going to design and sell products, shouldn't you be a professional in the field? Shouldn't you use the product? I think of all people, professional shooters should be those who design and sell the products and those who compete. Not just us guys. There's more accountants and plumbers who show up and shoot more rounds through their guns than I see people who literally work for the big name companies out there. That's ridiculous. You can't work for Glock. You can't work for Smith and Wesson. You can't work for these major rifle companies. And John the fucking plumber comes out as a masterclass shooter on the weekends and outshoots you, has more experience and more know-how than you, but you somehow are making development and products for the rest. It's silly, and that's what this whole thing was about. Yeah, I'm sick of seeing the stupid shit that comes out, and I'm done seeing like the re-releasing of something that should have just been released once the right way. But the whole reason that's happening is because the people we're buying stuff from they're not using it. They're not using it. And that's again going back to the beginning of this podcast why I was very careful with my words. I like the companies I am representing and sponsoring and all that kind of stuff because they're shooters. They're out there developing. Shooters Global went to a match and went, man, your timers suck. Let me develop this timer. And then guess what? Year after year, month after month, those guys listen to us and develop a better and better product because they're out there seeing what's going out. They're asking the guys who are competing. They're asking me. They're asking B-class guys. They're asking JJ. They're asking Lena. Ghost Holsters, same thing. They're out there. They designed an awesome product. I see them every match, every major match I go to. I see them on online always competing and using their own products and developing their own products. Vortex has the Edge Center because they have a literal center to test all their products. They have real instructors and real shooters demoing, testing, and developing products over there. So Vortex hits the mark out of optics a little bit more and they might not be throwing optics at you left and right like all the other companies, but in my opinion, like I just said, I think that's a good thing. I think it's because they're taking their time to actually develop quality products. Modern Material, all the companies I represent are because I would spend my money on them anyway because they're shooters developing products for shooters, and it just makes sense. So I think that needs to be something that we should start to live and breathe a little bit more. Cool, that's a nice product. Why did you develop it? How did you develop it? How much did you use it? Who used it? How successful was it? Not just like, oh, cool, big optic. Oh, cool, little gun. Oh, cool, comp. Guys, like, guns are cool. They're also expensive, and you can only shoot one, maybe two at a time. But like you can only shoot one at a time. So like this whole collection of gun nonsense. It was funny. I was just talking to one of my clients. I'm selling one of my old steel frames right now, not because I hate it or anything, because I don't collect guns. I keep guns that are useful and I use all the friggin' time, and I have multiple steel frames now because that's what I was competing with last season. So I'm getting rid of, I'm shedding some weight, and I'm not going to collect guns. I'm going to buy the next competition gun. I'm going to buy the next carry gun. I'm going to buy the next, or I'm just going to, buy four more cases of ammo and continue practicing and being better with a stock Glock than most people are with a $9,000 2011. And I'm not joking anymore. $7,000 1911s or 2011s are coming out to my range, and they're literally getting pooped on, not even just by me, just by dudes with Glocks. I've got a student that's been doing this for seriously for I don't know 2 seasons now. He's shooting from appendix with the Glock 34, and he's absolutely beating on guys who've been doing this for a decade with way more expensive guns. So like I don't know. I'm me. This is my thought process. I'm very much the form follows function. I'm very much the efficiency guy. But I think at the end of the day, if you're into performance training, if you're into hit factor, if you're into USPSA, which you probably are if you're here talking to me or listening to me talk, we're about efficiency. That's what the game is. It's points per second. It's a game of efficiency. It's not how accurate can you be or how fast can you be. It's both, which is measurement of efficiency. So why shouldn't we start applying that to everything? Like money per value, like money per accuracy, money per speed. My Glock splits just as fast as that Walther did. It's just as accurate. Why would I pay 3 times as much for it? I already did that in one of those other podcasts. I covered my gear stuff, but that's why I went off the Walther. Now, I'm in Glocks. I'll talk about that. What am I shooting right now? I'm shooting the pair. I'm shooting a pair of 34s. I had a pair of 34s that were my production guns actually. When I made GM in production, I had a pair of 34s all ready for that. I was gonna say all decked out, but I shoot stock Glocks, so that just means a handle it pair of sandpaper grips, and they're production. So I had just a fiber optic front, blacked out rear. That's what I do. Um, so what I ended up doing, I just threw some optics on those. I'm running them as my carry optics guns this year. They're great. I trust the Gen 5s. I know they work. I've shot thousands and hundreds of thousands around through multiple Gen 5s at this point. So I know that they combine. Sorry, that sounds funny. But like I know the Gen 5s work. The Gen 6, awesome gun. But I said it in the beginning of this podcast and I'll say it again. I have working setups. I have trustworthy working zeroed, ready to rock Glock setups out there. So why am I not shooting the Gen 6 in competition? Because I don't need to throw away Glocks to shoot the next Glock just because it's the next Glock. They don't pay me. I don't get any money for shooting. Like you don't get extra points for shooting the newest gun. I don't know if anybody knew that. I don't know if you knew that your hit factor doesn't go up just because your gear is cooler than the next guy's. I find it's funnier to beat people with old ratty carry guns than it is to come out with a fancy gun and whiff. But the Gen 6 is great. I think if you were on the fence about going to Glock, there's complaints about it or like, hey, I didn't know if I was going to Glock, or it's finally time. Because in my opinion, my joke is, and you've heard me say this before if you follow me, all roads lead to Glock. At some point, you're going to land a Glock. You're going to stop wanting to mess with guns. You're going to stop wanting to do, you're just going to want a gun that shoots every single time and shoots well, and you're going to end up with a Glock. Whether you go away from that and come back, or like me, just stay with the freaking Glock, all roads lead to Glock. Um, if your road is finally leading back to Glock and you're not shooting a working Glock right now, I think the Gen 6 is your best option to get into it. Flat face trigger, I like the rolling brake Glocks. I like the way the trigger feels. They also self-polish themselves, so the Glock trigger just gets better infinitely with time. Um, Now, Handle It already has the grip tape out for it, but out of the box, if you're just going to carry it, if you just don't want a grip tape gun, if you have more sensitive hands, because I have dead hands, I would have broken glass in my guns if I can. But like if you're going to just do stock grip. The Gen 6 grip is inarguably better than every other generation of Glock grip. The profile of the grip is cool. Um, so they actually innovated. So Glock, it seems like they listened. It seems like they listened to the performance shooters this time and they didn't listen to the crowd. Because if they listened to the crowd, other than the V series, I have my own problems with that. If they listened to the crowd, we would have gotten more back straps. We would have gotten slide windows. We would have gotten a single stage. You know what I mean? We would have gotten like the Trigger Tech trigger installed. The Glock would have been unglocked if we listened to the main crowd. But we listen to people who shoot Glock, and it looks like, hey, if you leave the Glock reliability alone, but you just throw a flat face trigger on it, people will be happy. People are happy. Hey, I'd like a better textured grip, and I'd like a better profiled grip. People will be happy. People are happy. How about being able to access the slide or the mag release a little bit better? Not only on the 34, but the seven, or not only on the 34 like the rest of the guns, or like the rest of the generations rather, but on the 17, the 45, and the 19. How about being able to release that? Thank you guys, but not compromise the general reliability of a Glock and by the way, the part availability, the holster compatibility, the know-how, the good stuff. Like they did a very good job. Now, I want to talk about one other company that I wrote down, and I don't write this down in any specific order. It's just kind of like my free form bullshit talking because my wife doesn't want to hear about this, and I don't talk about guns enough. But the one company I did write down is Alien. Now I like Alien. Alien finally innovated. Somebody finally did something different. They're listening to their customers. I have a couple of customers that have a couple of aliens, and they listen to them. They help them fix things. They send stuff back and forth. They're more responsive than most other companies. Like I've seen out, like Walther doesn't help most people when they break their guns. I hate to say it. Glock's surprisingly responsive if you break their shit and it's still in, like if you haven't messed with it, if it's still in warranty, they're actually surprisingly good. But yeah, Alien is one of those companies that's finally innovated. Now I'm seeing a couple more of these low bore axis straight pull triggers coming out. Like, hey, that DWX is a cool one to start to see. I do like this innovation stuff. And is it my forte? Am I going to buy an Alien? No, like I'm not going to go out and buy a race car. But I do like that there's new technology, new things being worked on, new options for people, new things. I see a couple of real good shooters. I have a student, Andrew, is absolutely crushing it with this Alien. I mean, the dude is has the fastest hands, but he could draw and reload that thing like no other. The thing shoots really, really, really fast and accurately. It's a cool gun. I see it work very well. I see a couple guys out at majors. This guy Deshaun is ripping it up with it, I believe his name. But I like to see those companies that are kind of willing to step off the path and not just be like, hey, look, we made another 2011, but ours has different slide cut. Hey, cool. Alien actually did something different. You know, like that's actually pretty cool. There's actually like the DWX. Hey, cool. Somebody actually they took the best of both worlds. They took like a Shadow 2 upper and they smashed it onto a 2011 lower. And like, hey, you know how everybody likes 2011 trigger, but they really like the reliability of a Shadow. Here you go. Like, cool. They were talking, and you know what I find is those companies are often run by shooters or inspired by shooters. They're not just a company trying to, how do I make money on guns? No, make your money, man. I'm not like a monster. I love capitalism, but I hate this world of redundancy we live in. Like we're so inundated with choices and none of the choices matter. What gun is the best? No. Like in my opinion right now, when people come to me, my students, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to talk about like this gun. I have preferences, but I will always shout out like everything. And this is my preference. I'm not Bible. I'm not gun Jesus. Like I'm not telling scripture right now. But what I will say is based on what I see out there, what I see work all the time, and based on availability and efficiency, when anybody comes to me, I'm like, hey man, what I want you to do is pick up a couple guns and see what one fits you the best. Pick up a Glock, pick up a Smith& Wesson, pick up a Shadow 2, pick up a 2011, and just bring it up to your eyes a couple times. Punch it out a couple times, do a couple draws. Whichever one makes you the happiest, go. Go be happy. There's not going to be a better or worse. The one thing I will say is of all this conversation here, basically me saying nothing matters, they're all the same. Well, we're not the same. That's kind of the big difference here is we should be designing guns for people, not designing guns for guns, like not designing guns for the industry. I tend to like Glocks because I really like that aggressive grip angle. It really helps me find a consistent return point. It really I like the return of the gun. But if you don't like that, who the hell am I to tell you how to hold the gun or like what feels comfortable? I'm a hobbit. I might just have different proportions of my hands and my grips and everything. If you like a more upright gun, go grab a 2011. If you want somewhere in between, the Smith& Wesson's great. If you like a hammered fire gun, if you want a lighter trigger and a heavier gun, go grab a Shadow 2. Outside of that, go play. I'm never gonna poo-poo on anybody, but outside of that, I don't see by the numbers statistically a lot of success. I don't see the guns run for a huge point in time. I don't see a lot of reliability. And going back to what I said earlier in the podcast, if you want to just go to some data, Nationals has a poll every year. Who is shooting which gun? And I think more important than anything, if you could filter out the data, go look at A class masters and grandmasters and go see who's doing the best in those divisions and go see what guns they're shooting. Because they're not fancy one-offs. Brantley Merriam shooting like a stock 7. I know he's got some changes to it, but he's shooting a Glock 17. Um, Christian Tyler, the best shooter in the world right now, is shooting a Shadow 2 and just beating the crap out of everybody with it, like badly. Uh, just on and on and on. I mean, there's a bunch of Beretta guys that are just using a 92, whatever the new performance gun is. And hey, if you like that gun, sure, you can throw that in the mix too. I forget about it because it's hard to get your hands on. And I will add that as a little point. If it's a great gun, but I can't find it in stores for you, don't care. So it's funny if I forgot to mention a gun in here, it's probably just because of that reason, just because they're hard to get. They're a little bit more rare. No, I don't want to say rare, but they're not like something you could walk into a gun shop, grab, put your hands on, and then there's not going to be parts and pieces everywhere for it. You're going to be custom ordering stuff. Good gun though. I do see the Berettas run when they run. When you mess with any gun too much, things go wrong. But I see the new 92s go pretty well. I was a student with a couple of them, and they seem, I mean, they shoot, they're accurate. I like them. Just like Most of the other guns, when I did my testing with them, I tested a Beretta, I tested a Shadow 2, I had an IWI in there, I tested a 2011, and I tested the Walther. And I settled on the Walther because it was like, in the test I was telling you about, it was the most comfortable. But I can tell you all the guns. My end thesis was like, oh wow, great gun, just not for me. Just doesn't fit me, not my preference. But a great gun. They're all great guns. They're all good guns, the ones I picked. But that's my little diatribe here. I'll say it's off my chest, but I'll keep bitching about this until the cows come home. Um, I really wish the gun industry would start to consult shooters and stop consulting the guys in the cubicles and stop consulting Reddit. Even stop consulting the gun shops. 'Cause I don't know if you've ever walked into a gun shop and the guy behind the counter is rarely the guy you want to take advice from, which is also something that I should have wrote this down because it's kind of another point in this is I stopped giving my money to those kinds of gun shops. I only go to a gun shop that I walk in and the guy behind the shop trains, shoots, knows what he's talking about, is out on the range doing things. He's not a FUD. He doesn't just own the shop. I make the same analogy for like, hey, if you ever walked in a surf shop and the guy behind the desk was some balding fat white dude with glasses on who clearly didn't surf, would you listen to him about anything in that surf? Would you buy a surfboard from him? No. I skated, I surfed, I BMX'd, a dirt bike. When you showed up to that dirt bike shop, the guy back there was like, "What's up, bro?" Like he could tell you about the motorcycles he rode. He probably had a cast on, you know what I mean? And that lent to his credibility. So when I go to these gun shops and it's just some fat old guy back there who's just got nonsense in stock, I don't give those guys money anymore. So I tend to trust shops that are trustworthy now. And I think those shops, Sweatshop around here is one of them. Sweatshop down in Allentown area, I forget, Quakertown area. Those guys are shooters. They come out to my matches. They go out to other matches. They shoot night stuff. They shoot USPSA. They shoot tactical stuff. They do everything because it's their friggin' industry. And now they're at SHOT Show too. And those are the guys who should be at SHOT Show. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of industry I wish was at SHOT Show. I hope that we can start to close that gap a little before we start to like cannibalize ourselves because if this industry continues in that way, we're just going to become another like corporatized industry where there's a sales department, there's a marketing department, there's an actual application department. Like we don't need that. In my opinion, I kind of like the smaller, more streamlined feel of this community of this industry. Gun world should be straight end user to product development back to straight end user. I don't really think the general population as a whole who buys guns and collects them and keeps them and doesn't shoot more than a couple of hundred rounds a year. I think we need to start poo-pooing them out of even if they film well. I say that because how many of you have seen like your favorite gun company or your favorite optic company have a advertisement come out with some chick or some dude who's got a nice manicured beard who's teacupping the gun or holding it wrong. I'm looking at you, Navy and Army. But I'm also looking at you, major gun companies, like that's a terrifying thing that we say. We need to start closing the gap there tremendously. But I could talk about this all day long. It's something that I believe in, but it's something I believe in not because I'm like, boo, I hate you all. It's because like I love this industry and I care for it deeply. I care about this whole thing. I want to help. And I think it'd be a lot better to get to the point quicker and be able to develop quicker if we stop listening to people who don't matter. We can I know who I feel doesn't matter. I know I have my opinions. I know everybody will have different opinions. But I know we could all agree we can kind of shorten the stream. We could shorten the stream from product development to end user a little bit more. But yeah, thank you guys for holding on for that one. I know this probably went a little bit longer than the 30 minutes I was talking about earlier, but thank you guys for sticking with me. I have some other fun stuff to talk about as far as this industry goes. I've written down some fun stuff. But again, if there's anything that you're like dying to hear about, talk about, you want to hear my opinion on, you want whatever, for whatever reason, you want to listen to me talk about it, let me know in the comments. You could hit me up. You can message me if you don't want it to be public. I don't care. But thank you guys for sticking with me. Something I failed to do. Keep forgetting to plug myself and my sponsors and all that stuff. I mentioned a couple of my sponsors in this, so I feel good about that in there. But what I will say is right now I'm looking at it snow right now. What do we got? About 3 inches right now. It's dumping right now. Um, Once this is cleared up, I have my weekly matches coming. They're not stopping. I'm still doing my weekly stuff. That said, March kind of starts my season again. I have my first competition fundamental starting in March. So if you're in the Northeast PA area or anywhere within this area that you want to come and because I have an Airbnb on site. We have a big mansion on site if you want to come and stay. I have my 2 day, 1 day and 2 day competition classes coming starting in March. I have one in March, April, May. I have a match every single month coming. And more than anything, my private training is going to open up a whole bunch because now that my wife is home with kids and they're not so tiny and unpredictable, I'll be on the range a whole lot more this season. I'll be traveling a lot more. I have like 7 major matches this year, but I think they're all within like June to August. It's pretty crazy. It's like end of June to end of August is like six of them. I think all of them other than Mid-Atlantic is all in that time frame right there. So it's going to be a busy season. I hope to see you guys out there. I got a lot of time for private training. I got a lot of private groups. I got a lot of big group stuff. I'm bringing in Rob Epifania in April. I'm doing a big ladies course in April. I know JJ Rakaza is going to be coming sometime in the summer. We always have to lock down a date at some point, but he will be coming as well. Me and Kita have a class in, I want to say May, and I'm gonna reach out to a couple more instructors. So another thing, if you want to see any instructors come nearby, I'm gonna reach out to Christian Seiler and see if I can bring him out this way. I have some other weird plans that I don't want to spoil just yet. But thank you guys for sticking with me. As always, I'm gonna go do it right now. Don't forget to dry fire. Have a good one.